Hey, I'm Charlie, and in this episode of Mediocracy Tries, I'm going to show off two of my favorite story games. The first game we're going to look at is Beneath a Steel Sky by Revolution Software. Originally released on MS-DOS and Amiga systems, it's a cyberpunk point-and-click adventure game. At that, it's pretty high quality. The story gets introduced by a comic book style cutscene that's cheesy, but in the good and enjoyable way. After you're introduced to the main character Robert Foster through this cutscene, you start the game. Beneath a Steel Sky is not a very complicated point-and-click adventure game. You might see that as a drawback, but for those of you who are new to the genre, it's a great entry point. All of the puzzles in this game are very logical, and even though one or two solutions may seem odd to you at first, you can usually figure things out by trial and error alone. Now, that said, the solutions to most of the more complicated puzzles are pretty obvious once you actually figure them out though. Now, there shouldn't be any problem figuring things out because the game is fully voice acted and there's comments for pretty much every situation and item that you can interact with. In addition to that, if you need more information about anything, you can have tons of optional conversations with NPCs to learn more about the world, or maybe about solutions to possible puzzles that you're going to face soon. Even though some of the dialogue might be simple, just like the plot and the gameplay, there are a ton of jokes in the game that are pretty funny when you think about them. There's not really much to say about this game, or really much to critique it with. I found the whole thing to be an enjoyable experience, and nothing really stuck out at me as being terrible about it. Beneath the Steel Sky is quite a relaxing game to play, and there aren't really any high-intensity action scenes, so you should download the game while you make yourself a cup of coffee and get comfortable. Now, the second game we're going to look at is Digital: A Love Story by Christine Love. Digital: A Love Story is more along the lines of an interactive mystery/romance story. It had excellent reception when it came out in 2010. In Digital: A Love Story, the entire story is set on the late 1980s internet, and you interact with the game as if you were controlling a computer from that time period. The entire story is told by reading posts on bulletin board systems that you can visit by typing in the phone number of that BBS. From there, you can read board messages and messages that are sent to you. All of your interaction in this game is done through a computer, and moreover, done by a protagonist who is entirely silent. That may seem quite odd in a story-based game, but it's actually quite unique and it works quite well. In Digital, the main character is supposed to be you. That means that if the author wrote something that you disagreed with, it would be jarring and it would take you out of the game. That jarring effect is really common in a lot of games. For example, if you're playing Mass Effect or something similar, and you want to say something so you choose it, and then the main character says something completely different, or says something that you wouldn't expect them to say at all. Digital: Love Story gets around that, and is surprisingly a lot more engaging because of the fact that the protagonist is totally silent. So, Digital executed the protagonist very well, but sadly the user interaction is just a little bit lacking. You see, in order to visit the bulletin board systems I talked about before, you actually have to type in the phone number of the BBS. Now, the problem with that comes in when some portions of the game you actually have to switch between BBSs quite frequently, and so what can happen is that first you type in the phone number for the BBS, and then you type in your password, and then you read one message, and then you close that, and then you type in another phone number for another BBS, and then type in another password, and it just kind of gets really repetitive and really boring. So, this game has good points and bad points, but I definitely recommend you play it. The story is very engaging. Also, for fans of sci-fi or cyberpunk stories, you should also play this game. That might be a tiny bit of a spoiler, but it was a pleasant surprise for me when the plot got more complicated and I realized exactly what was going on. So, those are two of my favorite story games. Some people might be hesitant to call them games, but they're definitely an interactive medium, so I decided to include them on Mediocracy Tries anyway. Besides, at least I didn't recommend you some kind of weird visual novel that has crippled girls as the main characters. Hi everyone, this is still Charlie, and this is my normal speaking voice. I have some announcements to make to you. The first announcement is that all of us at Mediocracy are college students, and therefore, because the fall semester is kicking in very soon, I'm probably going to have to put Mediocracy Tries on hold. That doesn't mean that we at Mediocrity aren't going to make more videos, and that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make more videos myself. But that just means that this particular series requires a lot of time, forethought, and editing, and therefore I'm going to have to put it on hold until I can get some more time to make fresh content. Therefore, next week is going to be the final episode of Mediocrity Tries for a little while. I also have a heartbreaking news announcement for you guys. At 18 years old, on July 29th, 2013, the final issue of Initial D came out. This video will end in a moment of silence, so that we can think about all the drifts that never were.